What do you call the person who
Interloper? No. Intermediary?
No,
Sounds like
the guy that came in that ended up we know shared the information. What do you call that?
Insider.
The police. Like an insider.
A mole. No, he was
infiltrator.
So tell us. So Ann, tell us. Tell about the tree.
It was you and Willie and I and Arthur, David and Sue and John. Pardon? Sue Alex. There was a group of us, and we had this great plan to plant a live tree on the property of Avco, where they were making the shroud for the MX missile and something else deadly. And we thought this would just be this extraordinary sign of life, of nurturing life in a place that was about death. So we gathered at Willie's. Willie was a Catholic nun and lived with 2 or 3 members of her order in a house in Lowell. And we met there, and we went from there in a van driven by the mole, who had just decided. Arthur knew him. Arthur had met him.
He's been meeting with us for months.
Yeah, he was here. He acted like he was really interested in
yes. He wanted to be a big part of this. So he drove. It was an old van, and we arrived at Avco, and we pulled into a side road, and some people jumped out, and we had this tree, we had water, we had a shovel, we had dirt, and whatever you needed to plant this tree. So you all jumped out, and Arthur and I were left with the tree and something, I can't think of what the other thing was, it might have been a shovel. And suddenly the driver said, "Hit the floor."
Oh.
And Arthur and I think are pretty, he's younger than I think, but we're pretty close in age. The 2 of us laid down on the floor of this van, and the police came up around the van, and then they came over to the driver, and they said, "What's your name?" And he gave his name. "Where are you from?" "Lawrence." "What are you doing in Wilmington at midnight?" "We were visiting. Then the 2 other policemen came up, and they were walking around the back of the van with flashlights, looking in at us who
were on the floor
with this tree in between. Patty's tree. Patty had contributed Japanese maple.
Japanese maple.
So they then said, "What is that? What's that plant in the back?" And I called out and said, "A Japanese maple," and they went, "Uh-huh." Where were you going with that? "We were bringing it as a present." And then he said, "Move this van, take it off to the side of the road, I want you to pull over there." And with that, the driver took a toothbrush out of the glove compartment, and he went like that. He said, "Put that down." And I think he thought it was a weapon, but "Put that down." And he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "If you lived in Lawrence, you would have to start your car with a screwdriver or something because somebody had stolen your ignition, whatever." And he said, "Move it over there." So moved over, and I don't think they even took our names. They just said, finally, he listened to this ludicrous story about visiting, and he said, "I want you to turn this van around and go back to Lawrence, and we never want to see you again." And as we turned the van around, the headlights picked up Willie and Kate walking across the street. Noontime. And you made it to the other side of the street. And then it's your story from there.
I don't remember as well as you do, but I know some people had already gone over the fence and were hiding in the trees.
Exactly.
And some of us hadn't quite gotten over the fence, but we were out of the van. And we found, it took us hours to find each other later, because the van was our only way to get home. And the van they'd made the van leave.
And he told us,
we just kept wandering around. There's nothing going on in that town.
Especially at midnight.
But we went at midnight. There was no way, if somebody hasn't told them. The second we stopped the car, the police were there.
Yeah.
A bunch of them.
Exactly.
So they knew.
Did you ever confront him about it?
How much of a mole was
He disappeared.
You never saw him again?
I don't think we did.
No, we never did see him again. But Arthur, we were told to leave, and we were driving along, and